working with the rail industry since about 1928. Started with Trenitalia, the Italian railway. We're engaged probably with 60 to 70 railways across the world today. When you think about maybe an earlier generation of digitalization, in the early 1960s, after IBM had created Sabre, which is the airline reservation system for American Airlines, IBM actually created something called TOPS, which was for the freight railways. So Southern Pacific, one of the heavy hauls in the U.S., Union Pacific, a heavy haul in the U.S., and British Rail all deployed these systems. And these were really an automation of all of the manual processes. So we'd like to say back in 1964, if you had gone back to 1864, the job probably hadn't changed a whole lot. But IBM had made that core investment with a number of globally leading freight railways, and literally it built sort of the first automated system to be able to do that. Today we're engaged with most of these railways. In fact, one of the topics that I spoke about here was the idea of as part of digitalization, how AI, predictive analytics, and maintenance. IBM's engaged with a number of these railways today. For a number of railways, we also manage their infrastructure. So sometimes we'll manage the IT for being able to do that. Maybe not relevant to heavy haul, but we created probably the world's leading reservation and ticketing system for Trenitalia, the Italian railway, that was built recently. So, I could probably go on to 100 firsts that we've actually done in the rail industry. Right, so when you think about heavy haul, one of the questions I always ask a client is, what business are you in? And depending upon how you answer that, it depends on the type of innovation that you would do. So if the question is, I'm strictly a rail provider, then the types of solutions we might do is, how do I start predicting failure of track or start predicting failure of trains? If I'm a member of the supply chain, and a lot of what I heard this morning, which was really educating for me about the northern south corridors that's going on, and really the broader economic development of both South Africa and the region, I would see heavy haul as being a key member of the supply chain, which says I need to be reliable. And so if it's classic materials like mining and things, then you've got the pit-to-port optimization. So how do I use artificial intelligence? How do I use big data and analytics? How do I create asset management systems? One of the things that railways have is an enormous amount of data, but one of the challenges, and it's not a South or Africa specific thing, is how do I leverage data that's all been siloed in different places? So when I think about innovation here, it's how do I leverage the data that I have to transform an organization that allows me to serve customers better. For example, in predictive analytics, you'd start with a problem statement. I want to see this. One of the great things about artificial intelligence is it discerns on its own, through the algorithms that it uses, the patterns in the data. So I might not even, to your point, which is a good one, I might not even know the question to ask that might be the most critical thing to understand. And this is where the promise and the delivery of artificial intelligence is coming today, is it will sift through that data, structured data, so typical, IT databases. Unstructured data could be sound, could be video analytics, could be even social media data. And then through the use of algorithms, it looks for patterns that can help you understand what might be causality, what the correlations from the data are, and it would allow you, assuming that every company is resource constrained, I can only do so many things and I have so much skill and so many people to do it. Where AI can be helpful is potentially to flag those particular areas to say, this is where the emphasis is, this is what the patterns are showing, and to me that's a real aha moment. Maximo is an asset management system, and we have well over 100 rail and metro transit clients. So how do I actually manage my asset base? So it could be in rail speak, engineering assets, which are track, ballast, signaling systems, or it could be rolling stock. So that's the trains and the rail cars and the hoppers. Could be the real estate assets that I have. So from a very specific product standpoint, at least in the rail and metro industry, IBM is the world leader in enterprise level asset management management systems, which is Maximo. Then we've got a set of products on top of that. One is called PMQ, Predictive Maintenance and Quality, and this is that next step. So when we think about building those asset repositories and consolidating that data, PMQ looks to use predictive maintenance techniques to say, okay, I know the state of my asset, I know when it was last maintained, I know what information I'm getting now around potential degradation of those assets, and so it helps me build predictive models to do that. So that's the second one. The third then are things like Watson and artificial intelligence, and that's where, again, we can add all of this data of different types. The first two I talked about are mainly structured data, which is in traditional IT databases. By starting to use AI, now 80% of the new data that's being created around the world can be leveraged through those AI systems. So those are three very specific products, but there's also a fourth thing. We often engage with clients on individual opportunities, and in some cases we actually own the assets. And so our consulting organization, through our work with RAIL, has built up quite a portfolio of very rail-specific activities. We have patents in the rail space around rail maintenance and things like that, and so there's an entire portfolio of capabilities, from standard products that I can tell you about to specific assets that address particular problems. And the reason that's important is if you think about Transnet or any of the other Southern Africa railways, by our having specific assets, I bring time to value much quicker. Rather than having to create something, I've already got an asset. I'll need to tweak it to the particulars of Transnet, for example, but by doing so, I can bring value much quicker. And we've seen this play out in a project that we started with on predictive analytics 5-6 years ago. It took over a year. We can now do that same project in 8 to 12 weeks, so depending on the client. So creating value quicker is what our clients are asking for. So both from the product and then the consulting assets that we've created, we're able to do that. You know, just the energy, the excitement when I look at public-private partnerships, what industry wants to do, what the government wants to do, and then the cooperation amongst nations in Southern Africa. It's potentially, the opportunity is only limited by the ability to actually execute on this. So I think, you know, to be in that situation is enviable. Now the next step, of course, is getting that execution. Hopefully IBM will be part of that.